Hey, I'm Quincy and I'm a radio personality, but just like you, I'm always wanting to make better health choices for myself and of course for my family. Now that's why I've teamed up with my friend Dr. Dean Tyndall and the fine folks of New Life Naturopathic, the creators of new-lifeweightloss.com, to bring you a podcast focused on giving you the information you need to make the best health decisions for you and your family. Now, that's going to be without sway from what mainstream medicine has become. Now, this podcast, Pursuit of New Life, we're going to release one each Friday. And we're going to focus on debunking the mainstream medicine myths now associated with naturopathic, holistic medicine, while giving you clear insight into ways you can make your health a lifestyle and not a jump from fad diet to fad diet. Experts in the fields of biochemistry, chiropractic, physiology, women's health, and much more will weigh in on a range of topics, all designed to open your eyes, expand your knowledge, and bring you to new life. Now be sure to subscribe to Pursuit of New Life on all the podcast platforms, and also follow us on YouTube at newlifenaturopathic.com, and be joining us every Friday for Pursuit of New Life. Hello there, and welcome in again to Pursuit of New Life. We are going to cover an interesting topic today that has definitely taken our world over the last couple of years, and so be prepared for that. But as you're preparing your brain to absorb this information, we would like you to subscribe so that way you know when new episodes of Pursuit of New Life is coming out, and that will be on your favorite podcast platform under Pursuit of New Life. Also on YouTube, it is under New Life Naturopathic, and so we would encourage you to subscribe there as well. I have the New Life team, as you can see next to me over here, one of these areas, you know. I'm not like the weather guy that can point in the right direction, but we do have our team here, and we're grateful for you. And if you're listening on podcast, you wonder what I'm pointing at, well, go to YouTube, like I just told you to. Then you can see. So we are going to talk about today COVID. So it's you know, we talked last couple episodes about the season we're in and flu and some things like that. And of course, we've learned a little bit about why that is and why things come back around this time of year. But COVID existed before 2020, by the way. So it just got really, really famous during that year. So, Dr. Tyndall, what do you want to start us off with today in talking about this particular COVID strain?
Basically, one of the biggest questions that we get from patients coming in is COVID prevention. What are things I can do to help minimize my risk, keep myself healthy, and keep COVID at bay? Plus, you know, this protocol is also to keep a lot of your other seasonal issues at bay also. So, but yeah, a big one was just that a lot of people are like, doc, what can I do to, prevent COVID and stuff like that? Because a lot of people are still afraid. You know, people are still walking around with masks and stuff like that. Of course, they're starting to ramp up the stuff on the news and getting people kind of, getting them kind of revved up again. So
yeah, the rhetoric is coming back around again.
Yeah. So I thought, we just kind of give everybody, because we're seeing the videos starting to pop up with people, people are, especially non-doctors, popping up and telling people what to use. And some of the stuff is like ridiculous and crazy. So we thought, yeah, it's probably good that we give people good advice from doctors that actually work with this stuff. So,
well, one of the things that we talk about often on this podcast is standard process when it comes to prevention and supplements. And one of the places you can go is the New Life Naturopathic website, but you can go to newlifenaturopathic.standardprocess.com. YouTube viewers, you can see it on the screen. And Doc is going to be talking about some of those supplements. And we will even show you what some of them look like today. Here is one. How about this? The Immune System Health Pack.
Yep, that's a great pack. They also have a vegetarian vegan pack, but this one is a really good pack that we use with most people. And the next graphic will show you all the stuff in it. So it's a source of calcium, iron, zinc, copper, chromium, folate, iodine, B vitamins, A vitamins, B6, B12, real vitamin C and E is in there. It's also a source of magnesium and selenium. So you hear a lot of people like, oh, you need like zinc and all this stuff. You actually need more than just zinc for your immune system to work. So this immune pack kind of really covers all the, the minerals and some of the vitamin complexes that you need for your immune system to work properly.
That's a bunch of stuff in one pack right there, I tell you.
Yes. And the best thing is it's all from a food source. They're not a bunch of synthetic stuff that's made from coal tar. Which I think we did a video on that one.
We've done some pointing out on making sure that it's not synthetic that people are using. That is for sure. And so you also pointed out some other ones besides the immune system health pack. You had a few others you wanted to share as well.
Yeah. So one of the big factors they found, especially when they did Italy, they did study in Italy about and they found that the vast majority of the people who came down with COVID had very low vitamin D levels. We've talked about vitamin D several times, but this is, again, a food source of vitamin D. It's also got vitamin A in it because you need vitamin A and D to work together. This is so your vitamin D level that you want to be is around 70. That's an optimal, not 30. And then the last thing, not least, but black cumin seed. We did a class about a year and a half ago on COVID. And the guy that did the class brought up a lot of research. A lot of people were using ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine, and those were around the 20s to 35% effective for COVID. Black cumin seed was in the 80s, I think it was around 85% effective for the prevention and for helping patients who are suffering from COVID get it.
So even with symptoms, this one, not just prevention, but also during symptoms, it helps.
Yes, it does. It helps clear it up quicker. Black cumin is from the Middle East, and if you look back at actually ancient texts, and it says they basically said black cumin cures everything but death. So,
well, I need that in my cabinet. Dr. Stuber, is that one that your cat chooses to? Like, I just want to make sure if it's cat approved.
Oh. Not yet, but I'll keep you posted.
Okay, good.
But again,
it sounds like Dr. Tyndall that we're getting back into prevention again. And you mentioned this at the top of this episode. And when we had our prevention episode, you talked about supplements and how important they are in prevention. So even with the quote scary COVID, it's the same thing. Comes back to prevention again.
Yeah, pretty much probably 90% of all your illnesses and diseases is lifestyle, and guess what? That's a thing that we directly can control. Again, I've talked to some patients today, about our eating program, because it's about health, because it all starts with food. And we were talking about how, like, pretty much all your diabetes, Alzheimer's, a lot of these things are lifestyle. So that if you change how you eat healthier, you can change your outcomes, and you can actually change your path that turn that ship of illness to a different direction. And, like I said, in person was asking me about it, and I said, the reason we put the website together is because the weight loss website together is because it's so confusing out there. I said, I've been on some of these, famous websites of doctors, giving information and I, we, like, when we initially went, like, putting together smoothies, we put them through the nutritional calculator. Some of these smoothies had 70 to 100 grams of carbs per smoothie in them, which is ridiculous. That's all you need for a whole day. It's really confusing out there. People don't know what they're doing. We hear people all the time, "Hey doc, I know what I'm doing." Again, we're looking at them across the table. You're like, okay, then if you are, then why are you 250, 300 pounds? Why do you feel like crap? Why are you here? Why are you talking to me? And because that's one thing that nobody really wants to give up is how to eat healthy or give up their bad foods. But the thing of it is when you do our program, it's good, healthy foods. The meals are tasty. And we took a lot of that stuff into account, because if you don't like the food that you're eating, you're not going to stay on the program. You're not going to do it.
Well, and that's the importance of new-lifeweightloss.com. Again, people watching this on YouTube, you can see it when we put the graphic up, but those listening, new-lifeweightloss.com. It's a great resource, and we'll talk about it again as we go through this particular episode. Dr. Stuber, he mentioned just a moment ago diabetes and obesity, and I don't know, COVID, it affected people that had some of those risk factors more than others? And I know that's something you wanted to touch on today.
Yes, what I wanted to point out to people is the number one risk factor for getting COVID is obesity. It's comorbidity, and also for people that are obese, they are 9 times likely to have to be incubated, meaning they have to have the respirator, the breathing apparatus to help them breathe. And how obese you are is directly related to your stay in the hospital. So what I noticed is I've really heard nothing in practice until about the last 3 weeks about COVID. Now everybody's talking about COVID. What do I do about COVID? I point out to them, like, COVID didn't just happen 3 weeks ago.
Right.
A lot of what's going on is programming, and people think that, oh, the virus is out there, and it's going to come in contact with me, and I'm going to be sick. And that is a germ theory, and one that I particularly believe in. The number one thing that keeps you from getting sick is your own strength, your own immune system. So people don't realize that when they're overeating and they're eating bad things, it's a form of self-destructive behavior. When you're destroying your health, it affects everybody around you. It's expensive. If you don't make the changes you need to make, you're going to be sick. And again, COVID it's a lot of hype surrounding it. And it promoted a lot of fear. And now we have all kinds of issues. And I tell people, you can't really control anything but what you're doing. You can't control that the virus is over here, or the virus is over there, or so-and-so has a virus or is sick. You can only control how you take care of yourself so that your immune system is strong and that you don't get sick. The virus does not overtake you. Right. I think we mentioned it before. Like, people say, "Oh, how families sick?" And I'm like, well, because you have the same habits. You do the same things. And also, it just goes round and round and round, because what happens now is people get their immune system's low. So then the virus comes in and affects their immune system, and they get sick, and then they never really recover. So they spend the whole sugar season sick. I mean, I do a lot of the social promotion here, and I see it. People put this on Facebook, which I find very interesting, but they'll be like, well, I've been sick for 6 months, and they describe all their symptoms. And I'm like, well, because you never really got better in the first place. So as Dr. Tyndall pointed out, the number one thing you can do for yourself all the way around is good nutrition. It's eat right. And that's why Dr. Tyndall and Miriam put the program together. So everything is in one place. Like Dr. Tyndall pointed out, people will come in to me and they'll say, well, I know what to do. And the magic question is, well, are you doing it? Because obviously you're not. If you're doing it, why are you here? You're wasting your time, my time, your money. It doesn't even make sense. So you got to get through that fear factor and just stand up and say, yo, I'm going to take care of myself, and I'm not going to self-destruct anymore. And your life will be better all the way around. So,
well, and we don't want to minimize the impact that, people got this virus, and it impacted a lot of lives. What we're talking about today is talking about how you can do better to prevent it coming into your body and into your house. Because again, these are choices that we all end up making. Like, some people made choices not to wear masks, and I know that there's plenty to talk about on that topic as well. So Dr. Tyndall, I do want to give you the opportunity to talk briefly on that topic, and then we're going to get Miriam's perspective on this as well. So go, Dr. T, as it comes to masks, as people are again talking about this, what do people need to know about masks with COVID and anything when it comes to that? Hold on one second. Let me get you unmuted. It looks like you were muted. There you are, sir. Go ahead.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, okay. If you look at all the research out there, and a lot of the studies, the masks didn't work, and they don't work. And what the problem with the mask is there's several things that they did. It created a high anxiety fear factor. They created animosity because people wanted to wear them for virtue signaling. And if people who didn't wear masks, of course, people try to attack them. I know that myself and my daughter, we got attacked a lot when we out in the public. And actually, I would say stuff back to them. And someone asked me why I say stuff back to them. I said, because it's real simple. If I say something back to them, they're less likely going to say something to somebody else that can actually really be detrimental to them. Because I'm emotionally pretty darn stable, so I don't care. And so I tell, I don't have mind standing up for myself and telling people, go jump in a lake, because what you're doing is just as nasty as, somebody else doing with your virtue signaling, stuff like that. But the thing of it is, the biggest problem I have with the mask is they created with people a very false sense of security. And and that's kind of human nature, because we're a lot of us are looking for the magic powder potion pill for our health. Because we don't really want to look behind the curtain and go, it's my lifestyle, the food I eat, how I sleep, how I manage my stress, how I, do things, my lack of exercise, my lack and being sedentary, which again, people being stuck in their houses, that contributed a lot to these problems. Not getting out in the sunshine. I mean, it was a whole bunch of really bad advice that was given. And so what we're doing, trying to just give people really good advice to keep yourself healthy. And again, so the mask, again, that's false sense of security. So people stop, you actually started touching your face more, which increases your risk of something entering your body, because
and people were keeping masks in their pocket and then putting that on their face, thinking that was going to help. And the one that my favorite during that whole season, and even now I see it a few times here and there, is people wearing a mask in their car when they're by themselves.
Yeah. And the problem too is that there's a neat study that I was reading at the very beginning of it. It traps CO2 in there, and slight changes in your CO2 level really affects your amygdala, which increases your anxiety. And with anxiety, interesting thing about stress and anxiety is it down regulates your immune system. So you're doing things to actually make your immune system worse. And then I know there's a couple of studies or things where people sent their masks out to be tested, and they found like bacteria, funguses, and molds, all this other stuff in the mask because it's moist and wet, and and that also contributes to respiratory problems. And then again, weakening of your immune system, and anything that weakens your immune system is going to allow you those pathogens out there, because you're not going to keep these pathogens from getting into your body. It's crazy to think that. So the key thing is, when we talked about a podcast a while back about how do we get sick, there's those 4 steps. And the one that you can manage the best is keeping that host of the person as healthy as you possibly can. And that's why we recommend these supplements. Get outside, exercise, eat healthy foods, eat real foods, what we call make your meals from single ingredient foods, not stuff that has a list of ingredients that you need a PhD in chemistry to read. And that's why we put all this stuff together. That's why we try to give the advice to patients that we do to keep them as healthy as they can.
Yeah. Well, Miriam, you're the only one that hasn't gotten to chime in yet. COVID, popular topic for many years now. Most people just refer to the pandemic like there hasn't ever been another one in history. And it's coming back around again. Let's get your perspective, Miriam, what you want to add into this conversation today.
Sure. Thank you, Quincy. So I definitely have a direct experience with COVID, as I actually moved out of my hometown to a new city to take on a position as a scientist in a COVID testing lab. Oh, yeah. And so I saw a lot of it. I got COVID twice, if not 3 times in a row within the same year. So I definitely have my own personal experience with it. This is something that the world was definitely not ready for. And it just happened so fast. And, people are usually not great with change, especially on a more global scale. I mean, we definitely have gotten more connected through technology and social media, but in a way, it has also, I believe, divided a lot of society and made people turn on each other, unfortunately, with the news and all of that. But we won't get into that in this very conversation. Um, I guess what I will say is just to kind of remind people, make people realize the more common sense, and I don't want to say this is common sense or minimize the science behind it, and just how the effect of the virus actually did have. But yes, it is a real thing, and we're all accepting that. Um, as far as the mask mandate, I'm just going to speak for myself here. Um, when I was working inside of the lab, and I had to, which I was used to wearing masks, before then, because that's kind of my career. Um, it I didn't really notice that it made much of a difference for me, but prior to COVID, I usually would have the option of taking off my mask, during breaks and all that. And in this particular case, we were not allowed to. By the end of the day, I would get home completely wiped out, completely, um, you know, terrible headache, lightheaded, dizzy, like I haven't experienced before. And I believe part of that is what Dr. Tyndall was mentioning with breathing in CO2, and it basically adds another factor to the issue that you're trying to solve. And instead of getting to the root down of the problem, which is how do we protect ourselves if the virus were to enter our system, instead of giving us false hope that this may or may not work, regardless of the studies, and again, I'm not minimizing that either. I'm just speaking from my own experience. I take care of myself. I take supplements. I got through COVID 3 times, back to back. And, one, the first time I got COVID, I was asymptomatic. That is if it was not a false report, which does happen every now and then. Second time, it was worse. Third time was about the same. So it just kind of goes back to any other virus, like the flu or common cold, which I've also experienced. The flu, to me, that was worse than COVID. And so, I'm not speaking for, the entire population. But that was my personal experience. And, it just kind of goes back to taking care of yourself and being prepared, especially your immune health, especially at this time of year. Also, as far as the vaccine mandate, that also unfortunately didn't go well, especially in our society where, I highly believe in choice in medicine, or, even in the political realm. But, who's to say, we're not talking about what's right or wrong here, just what happened. As far as the vaccine, anyone who did not get it, there are alternatives. There is a natural alternative approach to strengthening your immune system. And I'm the type of person that I try my best to be as independent from the government, or not need, healthcare, unless I break a bone or it's a complete emergency, or I, fall off a ladder. Other than that, I really try to be self-sustainable in my own health. And so that's what I highly recommend, just from my own experience. And we can even do another talk on the specific numbers and all the studies that we have witnessed the past 2 or 3 years, and not just from the CDC, but all the agencies, USDA, FDA, and even, on a global scale too, and just how it all compares. Not diminishing or minimizing any of that, and not for or against any side. I really try to be as neutral as possible.
Well, just appropriate information coming out is the biggest thing, and
Yeah.
you mentioned this in a different episode, Miriam, when you were talking about experience and reading reports and what they release and what they allow to come out into the public. And it seemed like with this one, the control of information and some of the misinformation really, really pushed narratives and things like that made this worse than
Exactly. And unfortunately now with news and the media, there is even more and more conflicting information, misinformation, misguided information from the wrong sources. And it really is hard to decipher through that. Even as for me, and I come from that background. So I can only imagine how hard it would be for, the average person to try to make sense out of any of it. And I just the other day, I saw this doctor from Johns Hopkins who was basically not very satisfied with how the government was treating information and what information it was letting out and not, I guess more so selectively putting out certain information, leaving other information out. Again, this is not a claim of fact, just a claim of experience. So.
Well, we've talked before about, experience and training and what that does to Google searches. Yeah, we've had a whole episode about that. Dr. Tyndall, as we run out of time for this episode, you wanted to bring this up today because the conversation's coming back around and to again hammer home prevention. As we've talked about in the last actually several episodes, prevention has come up because of this time of year and how it impacts people. What do you want to leave people with today about COVID, about prevention, about just making sure that we are taking care of ourselves and actually, eating food that contributes to our immune system and doesn't make it worse?
I think it was Ben Franklin who said, "An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure," and that's that's a big thing that we see. And we did another podcast on this. The biggest thing that we see with patients and people is that fear of change, that fear of taking responsibility for themselves, the fear of, oh my gosh, I got to give up my ho-ho or my biscuits and gravy. And I tell people, why would you fear giving up that when you can have health, vitality, keep your toes, things like that. And and they're just so, the key thing is this: you have to take that personal responsibility. And that's a key thing with anything in this world, is back to that, I got to take responsibility for what I do, how I take care of myself and all these things. It's not in the doctor's hands, because I tell patients all the time, I'm not going to shop for you. I'm not going to cook for you. I'm not going to sit over your dinner table and nag at you what you should and shouldn't eat. My job and my role is to try to give you good, valid information so that you can take and use it for yourself to make yourself healthier and make your life better and your family's life better. Because, it's not just you. It's especially if you have kids, it's about your kids and all kinds of stuff like that. And I tell people, a cool side effect of our eating program that I find is fascinating is I tell parents, this is an opportunity to teach your children to eat, which then sets a stage for their children's future health. But what's really cool about it is it starts to rebuild that family structure, which is a big thing that's been destroyed in this country. Is that because when the kid makes a meal and helps make the meal, guess what they want to do? They want to sit down at the table with their mom and dad and their parents and tell them about how they made the meal and, hey, do you enjoy it? Do you like it? One of the, and I know we got to wrap it up, but one of the shows that my kids used to love is Master Chef Junior, and the kids would cook. So, what we would do is we'd go in the kitchen and we would compete, and the kids we'd make a dinner up, and the kids would cook a steak or this or that. And we'd all sit around and we'd try each other's food, and it was a blast to do.
Yeah.
again, you can have fun really doing it, and it's fun, it's healthy, and it's kind of what we need really back is getting back to basics in this country on what it means to have our health and families and all this other stuff.
And then that will lead to the holistic approach that we're talking about, and that'll lead to prevention, which helps with a whole lot of things. Now, if you thought that we tackled a difficult topic today in talking about COVID, next week you'll want to tune in on your favorite podcast platform or on YouTube, because we're going to talk about another topic that's probably, as Dr. Stuber called it, the real pandemic of our time, and that's diabetes. So make sure that you're setting your calendars, subscribing on your favorite podcast platform, on YouTube for New Life Naturopathic and Pursuit of New Life, because we're going to tackle that next week. And while Dr. Tyndall said he won't physically go shopping for you, at new-lifeweightloss.com, there is shopping lists that come with the program. So part of it is done. Won't physically go do it, but part of it's done for you. So it's a great program. So we hope that some of this information and perspective from some of our team have given you a little bit of insight on this topic that's coming back around in our vernacular again, COVID. But remember, before 2020, if you looked on any package of disinfectant wipes, somewhere on that package it said, this cleans even against COVID. I think they called it coronavirus in there. Yes, Dr. Stuber.
Another thing for prevention is use soap, not body wash or not hand sanitizer, just plain soap. Like, I know women, they use body washes and fragrance, everything, and it just doesn't clean anything. So it's very important. Sanitation is another huge factor in staying healthy. So soap and water, wash your hands, keep your hands away from your face. Remember that viruses and bacteria enter through your eyes and your ears also. So maybe a mask might keep it out of your nose and your mouth, but you still have other orifices that these things enter, so you need to stay clean.
Very good point. So you're saying stay away from frou-frou soap and just get some good old-fashioned soap and clean.
I like Ivory and I like Dial, and no, I'm not getting paid to endorse those, but the plain fine. There's a lot of things people think are soap, and you turn them around like they're not soap at all.
Wow. Well,
there's no soap in them.
So not only is this the COVID episode, this is the make sure you use good soap episode as well. Very important in prevention. Thank you for that point. And I'll remind you one more time, folks, make sure you're subscribing to the New Life Naturopathic channel on YouTube and also on your favorite podcast platform, Pursuit of New Life. That's how you can make sure you know when new episodes come out, and that helps us out if you want to leave a review. Or, hey, if you want to email a question to our team, that's available. I always forget about this every week to remind people that you can go and email contactnewlifenaturopathic@gmail.com. If you have questions for our team, and we may pop up with a Q&A episode one of these times and answer your questions directly on these episodes or on your podcast platform. All right, folks, that's enough for this episode, and we will see you next time as we talk about diabetes and tackle other things each week here on Pursuit of New Life.
Thanks, Quincy.
Thanks, Quincy.
Thank you, Quincy.